Okay, so
Okay,
I just
no problem.
began the sharing.
I was also going to share my screen, and I'll probably do it slightly later, if that's okay.
That's
But
fine. Yeah, yeah. Can you just, Mataji, just once try to share if it's working, just to
okay,
make sure it's working? Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Is it working?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So thank
Uh,
you so much.
um, okay, I'm not very good at this, but anyway, should we start or should I?
We would like to introduce you, Mataji, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Um, so His Grace, Her Grace, Pavani Devi Dasi Mataji joined ISKCON in 1999 as she began her PhD studies in chemical engineering in the United Kingdom. She actively took part in the local Pandava Sena preaching activities, which included organizing and speaking at various universities. Wow. After completing her doctorate, she also presided over the Pandav Sena youth programs in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where she is from. Her career, family, and devotional service have occupied many of the years since, and she arrived at a place of contentment in homeschooling her two children and speaking on varying platforms like ours. Thank you so much. Currently, Mataji, I don't know if currently you live in Ireland or are you in Orlando?
Yes, we live in Ireland now,
Okay.
in Wicklow Town. We've been here for a few years.
Okay. Okay. So she's currently in Wicklow, Ireland with her family. So we are very grateful for Mataji to have accepted our invitation to enlighten us on via our Sunday virtual session. So over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Right. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be asked, and very delighted to see everybody again. Thank you. To see. I will start with Jaya Radha Madhava, a little bit of kirtan, and then we will carry on from there. That's okay. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavalabha, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Giri Varadari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Vihari, Jaya Gopi Janavalabha, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Girivaradari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana. So, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Pada Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shra Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prashtarini Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschata Dejatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavnebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you again, and I'll start. Today I'll be talking about habit. Can I think I will share the screen now, if that's okay? Yes. Oh. Anasuya, could you please call Papa? The file was just there and I can't seem to find it anymore. Forgive me, Prabhu, just give me a second. It was just a minute ago and now it's not.
No problem. Take your time on the view.
Just on this. It was there a minute ago and it's not there now.
What happened?
The file.
The slides?
Yeah.
Strange.
It's Keynote, yeah? It's Keynote.
Oh, it's Keynote, is
Yeah.
it? Okay. Sorry.
It's there.
There it is. There is it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I'm going to share it.
Where was it? There.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah, no, I'll do that. Yeah. Thank you. Phew. The panic at times like this, it's not the most easiest time.
It's okay.
Oh, Krishna. Okay. How's that? Today we will talk about habit or behavior from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita. The reason I chose to pick this subject is because I was thinking, at times like this during the last 2 years, the lockdown, there's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of, for people, like their lifestyle is completely flipped. They, children are going to school sometime, and then sometimes they are, for long periods they're not in school. They have to learn online. Parents having to work from home, and there's a lot of time in between. There's a lot of good things that came out of it. I've seen more fathers playing with their children than ever before. They have the time now to think, okay, I'm going to try and spend time with my children, form this behavior, this habit of spending time with my kids, because before they would come back from work and the kids are probably in sleep, so is sleeping, so they don't have that. So there is a lot of good things that come out of it. People learn new skills. Some are taking, photography skills or baking or different things. They've learned it. But there's been a lot of bad behaviors also, bad habits have been developed. And there's been a lot of work by, behavior psychologists. They're always trying to figure out how people are coping in times like this. And they do their, the methods of them finding out what kind of things people are being up to. And so they publish information about what are the things people are into, and so I don't know, people are into some of the things that are not very good are like playing video games. And I don't know whether you've heard of Candy Crush. Seems to be very popular everywhere. I don't know if anyone's heard it. I haven't played it myself, but I've heard it's extremely popular. It comes up on my feed. But it's interestingly, they said during this period of time, um, they have 270 million logins a month. They are having that many people come in, and within a very few short period of time in the last few years, they have clocked about over 8 million years of playing time, combining all the players together playing, and they've clocked that amount of time. And it is one of those games where it's free. I think it's free, but then it's people can put their own money into it. I think, I don't know if you want to get some an advantage, whether it's gaining an extra life or extra time or whatever it is. And so although the game was free, they made 700 million in a year. And so it is how and then again, from like people who are watching TV, whether it's Netflix, they run on an algorithm of trying to understand people's habits, like how are they watching it, when are they watching, what are they watching, where are they watching. And even it measures everything, like where you press the pause button in while you're watching something, and when you're skipping. So they take all this information, and they're trying to understand people's habits so that they will know how to draw you into doing things. So I thought it would be good to understand a little bit of how behavioral scientists, they or psychologists, how they understand human habits, human behavior from their perspective. And then I'm going to spend a lot more time in trying to come from Bhagavad Gita, how we understand habits, and what the Bhagavad Gita says about behaviors, what Krishna says ultimately, and see how we can go from there. And the subject on habits and behavior, there's a lot of amazing Vaishnavas who, they do long discourses and seminars on understanding habits, Radha Shyam Prabhu, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, and I would highly recommend that to listen to their classes. It's very, very rich with information and techniques. So I'm going to try and squeeze as much as I can in this 1 hour or so. Um, so here is, interesting. I have a picture of an old man. His name is Lao Tzu. And he, these are some very famous quotes, why understanding habits and behavior is paramount to our progress materially, spiritually. We need to watch it, and a lot of it coming from our initial thoughts. So let's keep that in view, and let's move from here and see what it is. So this is my contents. I plan to just give a brief definition based on the meaning of it from different sources. Habit formation from the scientific point of view, and what the Bhagavad Gita has to say after that, a little bit of compare and contrast, and then how to form good habits. So very simple. Hopefully we will go through them. So in Latin and Old French, interestingly, habit or comes from the word habitus, is a condition, a demeanor, and also appearance or dress. We have a coffee shop here. They sell everything raw, everything vegan, and the shop is called Healthy Habits. Interestingly, it is also run by the Christian monks who wear blue robes. They wear blue robes all the time. So habit is interesting because habit is also, it is what you wear, as it has been. And it is now, it's only restricted to monks and nuns, but habit is also behavior, and eventually this is what that is dressing our personality. This is what we become by the behaviors we choose. So it becomes us. It's how, our appearance becomes based on the behaviors we choose. So it's very interesting how just a dress and behavior is very interlinked, because it is very much reflects on who we are. So according to science, now it is very simple. It's quite, science is great. It do come with a lot of things, and quite a bit of it is also a bit of common sense. But it's so it starts simply like this: when we are having a goal in mind, we have to take in information about what it is that we want to achieve, the situation we are in, and we are going to also use our experience from the past. And if there's any emotions related to that situation, we take all of that information, we will weigh it up. We will weigh up and see, okay, am I going to get this? Is this going to be possible? Is this going to be rewarding? Is this necessary? We weigh all this up, and then we set forth a set of behaviors, a set forth of actions to achieve that reward. And that's why we have the term goal-directed learning, because we are trying to understand these things, and then we go ahead and try and achieve that goal. So we are consciously trying to use our brain resources to think about these behaviors to best fit that situation. Now, in the initial stages, it takes a lot of processing power. The brain has got to go through, okay, first we do this, why are we doing this again? And then what do we do next? And if I do this, what happens? So we're weighing all this. Now, because it takes a lot of processing power, the brain almost makes the link between your reward, your final place, to the cue and the habit. It kind of makes it automated. So you're practically acting on autopilot. So that's what we have behavior. So that's why we have habit, sorry. So we have a series of actions. And when that becomes automated, then we have habit. And so, so they say, we have seen this model quite, a lot of us have seen it everywhere, I think, but they are basically, science would basically say that if you have a reward that you like, then you will form a habit to achieve the reward. And every time you have a trigger, whatever that is, you're just going to go and work around that loop. And they've done a lot of tests with mice and different things. And that reward varies from person to person. For some people, it's things, an object. They would want a house or a car, or, they're all objects. For some people, it's a little bit more subtle. It's acknowledgement or respect or status in society. But the reward is different for everybody. And of course, they would also say that it's they will give an explanation how habit comes about. It's because your brain is releasing dopamine, and every time you have a dopamine hit, you would be attracted to the reward more, and so your brain becomes more hardwired to do certain kinds of behavior because you like the reward. So these are the different things. Of course, this is a very simplistic way of explaining how they explain behavior or habit. And which is why these companies, when they use this model, this is why they use this model by saying that if I can limit the action part to a very small sequence of events and bring the reward closer to the queue, then they're going to be feeling they're getting this reward much quicker, and then therefore they'll be hooked to some things, whether it's for example, like some, again, like video games and things, they have like the Candy Crush. They apparently they have 5,000 levels, and so people are feeling, oh, I'm progressing very fast. My reward is progress. So I'm progressing very fast, and my action is I have to do so few things, and then I'm finally getting to the next stage and the next level and the next level. So this is how they get hooked into doing certain kinds of habits that are not good, or that is rewarding. And other places they use this also. Progress monitoring is another form of reward that they use, and this is particularly so in and I know of in places in Japan, in certain factories, at the end of the week, they would put up a sign outside the factory showing, oh, this week we have produced so many this, or last week we produced so much, and this is how much we have done this week. And the factory workers will literally come out of their house on Saturday, which is or could be their off day. They will go back to the factory where they work and look at these signs and say, oh, wow, so we have made so much, or we have made so little. So these are the kind of ways of motivating people to act in a certain behavior. So this is how they used information on how humans form habits. So that is from the science side. And then let's move on to what Krishna has to say. Now, Krishna, I'm trying to see if I can get rid of this picture. Okay, I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita, the same thing. So 18:18. So in 18:18, Krishna says, Jnanam Geyam Parikyata, Jnanam Geyam Parikyata, Trivida Karma Chodana, Karanam Karma Karteti, Trivida Karma Sangraha. So the translation to that: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So the purport, which I have typed there, I will just read it. There are three kinds of impetus for daily work: knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower. The instruments of work, the work itself, and the worker are called the constituents of work. Any work done by any human being has these elements. Before one acts, there is some impetus, which is called inspiration. Any solution arrived at before work is actualized is a subtle form of work. Then work takes the form of action. First, one has to undergo the psychological process of thinking, feeling, and willing, and that is called impetus. The inspiration to work is the same if it comes from the scripture or from the instruction of the spiritual master. When the inspiration is there and the worker is there, then actual activity takes place by the help of the senses, including the mind, which is the center of all the senses. The sum total of all the constituents of an activity are called the accumulation of work. I underlined that particular section because I thought it is interesting and important. So the impetus, like the driving force, or what is that is motivating us to, or the incentive to do a certain act. So the underline here, Prabhupada is saying that there is a certain amount of thinking process that happens in our mind before the behavior actually takes place, and he says this is in the form of thinking, feeling, and willing. So there's a subtle amount of work that is taking place before the work is going to go forward. Now, there are 6 things here that Krishna has stated: the Jnanam, the Geyam, the Parigyata, Karanam, Karma, and the Karta. And the verse is just Karteti. So of the 6 things, in the next verse, Krishna says, Jnanam karma cha karta cha tridaiva guna bedataha prochate guna sankyane yatavach trinu tani api. So again, according to the 3 different modes of material nature, maybe somebody would like to read that. Can they participate? Or if it's
Yes,
not,
anyone who wishes to read, please do. You can do so.
I'll read, Mataji.
thank you.
Jnanam karma cha karta cha tridaiva guna bhedatah prochyate guna sankhyane yatavat shrunu tani api. According to the 3 modes of material nature, there are 3 kinds of knowledge, action, and performer of action. Now hear from me. Hear of them from me, I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you. So we'll go back to this one. So of the 6 things, Krishna is going to talk about Jnanam, Karma, and Karta. I underlined that there. Now this is interesting because he says there are 6 things here, 3 of them that motivate action: the senses, the work, and the doer. Now the Parigyata and the Karta. Parigyata is translated as the knower. Karta is the doer. Both of them are the same thing. They are us. We are doing it and we know what we're doing. So the Parigyata and the Karta is the same. So he's going to be talking about the Karta in the next verse, he said. Now, Jnanam here is knowledge. And it's the knowledge on how to get the result, how to achieve the object of knowledge. And Krishna uses the term Jnanam also in the 13th chapter. And, when he lists from text 8 to 12, there's different kind of values that we should cultivate so that we can understand the spiritual science properly. And he lists, 20 different values, and they start with humility, amanitvam. And so again, when he lists those items as knowledge, they are a process on how to achieve spiritual science. Here, the Jnanam, he's saying this is the knowledge that you need to achieve Geyam. Now, to put that in example, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu gave a very nice example. So say a student is studying engineering, and after studying engineering, he's going to get a job. And when he gets a job, he's going to get his wages. And when he gets his wages, he's going to try and enjoy it. So the Geyam here, the object of the knowledge or the reward, is to be able to enjoy when he gets his wages. The object of enjoyment, it's not the studying. The studying is Jnanam. So Jnanam is the method in which he is going to get the rewards. So Jnanam, Geyam, and Parigyata. So this is how Krishna wants us to see the connection. And then when it comes to Karanam, Karma, and Karteti. So Karma is the work, and Karanam is the tools that we use, which is our body and our senses, mind, in order to achieve what we want to do. Now, interestingly, Krishna in 1819 is focusing again on Jnanam, Karma, and Karta. So he's focusing on Jnanam. He does not focus on Gyayam, and he does not focus on Karanam. He does not focus on Gyayam and Karanam because Karanam is our senses, made out of matter. The mind is a subtle matter, and you cannot act on matter. Matter is dead. You cannot act on matter. Again, the Gyayam, the reward, the object of knowledge, we can't act on them. Whether it is like I mentioned earlier, whether it is a thing, whether it's a car or a house or a subtle enjoyment, whether it's respect and acknowledgement, they are all things, matter. We cannot act on them. So he does not talk about this Karanam and Gyayam, but he talks about Jnanam, he talks about work, karma, and he talks about Karta. So that is in 1819. And again, so he talks about these three things importantly, and he spends the next 9 verses trying to explain these three things according to the 3 modes, because it is these 3 things that we can have an influence in. These 3 things that we can transform. And I kind of summarized Jnanam in goodness, passion, ignorance very simply. I got it from Gita Subodhini. That's a great book. So in simple way, so a person, a Jnanam in goodness means like this is their outlook, an outlook of a person in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. This is their understanding of people. So a person in the mode of goodness will see that there is unity in all living beings. They will see underlyingly everybody is equal in quality, but we all have a different kind of bodies. So this is a person's outlook in general. And a person in a mode of passion, they will see black bodies or bodies of different culture or bodies from a different kind of tradition. They act differently, therefore they are wholly different species altogether. And so they make these kinds of distinctions. And a person in the mode of ignorance, they don't really care for these differences or not, or anything. They just, they live in a place where their work is all in our all, and they're not interested in what is true, what is not, so that is very much in the mode of ignorance or darkness. And then karma in goodness, passion, ignorance, this is how they work. So a person who works or chooses to work in a mode of goodness, they'll find themselves regulated. They will do the job with detachment, without the desire to enjoy the results. And it's more of like out of duty. They will do it because this is what I'm supposed to do, and they enjoy it, and they enjoy the work for the sake of doing it. That is the mentality of somebody who's doing the work in the mode of goodness. A person in the mode of passion, we know that they want to enjoy the results. I mean, it's quite, I think amongst devotees here, I think everybody is familiar how the goodness, passion, ignorance work in these different ways. And then in karma, this is what Prabhupada calls as ugra karma. This is the kind of things people do that is harmful to themselves and to the person that they're giving or doing something for. Simple example is the animal slaughter. The brothels or pubs or anywhere, everything that are doing things that are not of any advantage to the person, and they would have to suffer for the consequence of doing those things as well. So this is the kind of work that they do. So I will move with, so this is the worker, this is how they think. Again, it's very much connected to the work that they would perform. So how they think is almost how they're going to work. So if they work in these ways, then the work will follow, very much to the karma in goodness, passion, and ignorance. So here I have an example on how we see this in action, and I thought we would take a medical practitioner for an example. And we know, like and I think we have come across, maybe I have been fortunate enough to come across certain medical practitioners who are solely interested in making sure that the patient who comes to them are getting better, whatever condition that they come. They do not care, okay, you're Chinese or you are from this country or whatever it is. They just want to know, are you going to get better from having the treatment I'm going to recommend to you? And their sense of duty, because they see a unity in everybody, their sense of duty is to see that everybody is well. And sometimes, we also have heard of doctors who work in some disadvantaged place where people cannot afford to pay. And they're fine with that also, because what gives them pleasure, the reward here for them is having to perform that work itself. They're not interested. If you're in a mode of passion, then you'll be interested to see maybe financial reward would be your motivation, or a prestige in your, or to become a better known doctor in a practice or something. There could be many things that would motivate you. And we also know, like, examples of, say, a medical doctor in a mode of passion who was driven by money. They would probably recommend a lot more expensive treatment for your situation, or even sometimes they would recommend medication that are, and I have personal experience of being recommended a treatment, a recommended what do you call, a medication that it is not very effective, but only because they know you have to come back. They want you to be a repeat uh, they want you to be a repeat client, so to say. So that's very much how a medical practitioner is in the mode of passion. In the mode of ignorance, I think we have real life example. I read recently a problem in Korea where a lot of them, who are Korea, South Korea, I think is very much, plastic surgery is a huge thing there. And now plastic surgery, we know a lot of them is cosmetic and it's not necessary. But what these doctors are doing is that instead of actually performing those, they get in their trainee surgeons to come and do the job, and they don't do the job properly. But they do not care, because this is in a mode of ignorance, and it is not meant to be any good for the client. It is purely driven out of self motivation here. It's for their own need, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. And so it is interesting how, Krishna is always saying that in these different things, it is very much up to the person, very much up to the person, how they choose to have their worldview, how they choose to think. And they can have they can have a choice on how they want to form the habit. So here, a little bit of compare and contrast. So Krishna is saying the person, the performer, is the karta. The karma, again, is the kind of behavior you choose. And the jnana and the buddhi. The buddhi, Krishna also talks about that in the three modes in chapter 18. And then he's saying that we have a choice in the jnana section, in the karma section, and in the karta section. And once you decide on all of that, then your habit comes about. When your habit comes about, it will give you an outcome. And that outcome is, again, is happiness. We are always looking to have some kind of happiness, and he gives them again in the three modes. Now, this is quite, if anything, it is very empowering for us, because we are not allowing the reward to dictate how the habit should be. The habit or a certain behavior, the habit or a behavior that we conduct is very much dependent on how we think. Now, this is quite, I personally think is amazing, because signs have a very, you know, I can't get the word right now, but they say that, oh, we form certain habits because it could be hereditary, because we learn by observing other people, or we are under peer pressure. We have to do these things, otherwise we don't fit in into this community or this group of friends we want to fit in. So we develop certain behaviors because we are under pressure. And hereditary is one thing, and observation, they kind of make it like it's fated. This is what I am because this is how was my environment, and this is how I grew up, and these are things that affected me, and therefore I have these habits. And so Krishna is saying, no, the habit that you have is purely your choice because of the way you choose to associate with the gunas. And that comes about as giving you different kinds of habit. And so, for instance, when science were to say, or the behavioral psychologists or scientists would say, okay, we form different kinds of habits under stress, whether it's biting nails, or here I have some nice little symbols to simplify my words for me. I have people would take into reading or playing a music or painting or walking or cycling, playing games, eating, indulging in eating, shopping. And now these kinds of things have, even shopping, like nowadays, with being the lockdown, a lot of people have been addicted to shopping online, things that you can easily go out and just get it off the shelf, whatever it is that you need. Now you go online and you have to order it for them to deliver it by post, and then you're bombarded with the amount of variety there is of a shampoo, like things that you would have easily just gone to the shop that you like and got it. Now there's a whole load of variety of things. So yeah, so that takes time, and you form habits shopping, or on the internet, browsing on different things, on the phone, playing games, and then, more habits that are not very conducive, whether it's gambling online, or and then intoxication and other things. So science as well, stress is pushing people, and different people have different kinds of things that they find rewarding. And 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 people say, well, if you don't like the reward you're getting out of this, then change the habit. Just, like if you're feeling under stress, then instead of mechanically just walking towards the fridge and trying to eat, stress eating, then change the habit, go out for a walk. It is as simple as that. And so you have a lot of this literature out there in different kinds of magazines and books. They'll tell you how to change your habit. You change your habit. If you don't like the outcome you're getting, the reward you're getting, then you change the habit. Just change as soon as the cue takes place, the trigger takes place, change the behavior straight away. Just change the behavior, and you have a reward of your choosing, of your liking. But Krishna says it doesn't happen like that, because the habit is already, it's a result of the thinking the person, like what Prabhupada said in 1818 purport. It's a subtle work that takes place in your mind. So this is where we have to work at. We work at the kind of modes we want to associate with. For example, say if somebody wants to quit the habit of smoking. So if somebody wants to quit the habit of smoking, but they have other kinds of habits, or they are okay with other things, like they probably don't mind having an alcohol, a glass of wine with their meals once in a while, or they don't mind being binge watching on TV, or they are okay with meat eating or something like this. Now Krishna is saying, for this person, they're saying, well, I don't like this habit. I don't like the smoking habit, but I'm okay with all my other life choices. Krishna said that doesn't really work. You can't just pick one part of your habit that you have been acting very much in the mode of passion, stroke ignorance, and say, I don't want that, but everything else is fine. That kind of habit changing doesn't last. It's not permanent. And they tend to swap that kind of behavior for another bad habit. So it is not possible to completely remove a negative habit. To change a negative habit, you need a whole overhaul of your thinking as a karta, how you behave. Is your behavior in the mode of goodness? Is your outlook, is your intelligence? When he talks about buddhi here, is intelligence, when he says in the mode of goodness, you know what to do. And it is by Shastra. And intelligence in the mode of passion, you don't know what is the right thing to do, and you don't know what is the wrong thing to do. And intelligence in the mode of ignorance is that you think what is the right thing to do is not the right thing to do, and what is not the right thing to do is the right thing to do. That is buddhi in the mode of intelligence. So the choices have to be made here on the left hand side of habit, and then brings about the behavior eventually, which becomes the habit, and then you can have the outcome of your desire. So it's quite different, and we can see how what Krishna is saying, it makes a lot of sense. It's again, it's very empowering, and we have a choice here. And some people cannot say, oh, I'm addicted to alcohol because my father used to drink, my grandfather used to drink, we all used to drink as a social function. It's there, I can't give it up. But no, Krishna doesn't say that you are, these kinds of habits, you're not born into it. You can change them, because you have a choice to make these choices, to make which modes again you want to associate with. So when it comes to bad habits, now what does behavioral psychologists have to say about that? Well, bad habits, when the habits are good, for them, when the habits are good, where the reward is an advantage, it's fine. Nobody complains about it. But when the rewards are not rewarding you anymore, and in fact is giving you a disadvantage, then they call it bad habits. Until then, if it's a reward of your liking, whatever that may be, if it suits you to you know shop and you've got unlimited amount of money and it doesn't seem to matter to you, then it's not a bad habit. It is only bad when it's giving you a certain kind of pain and those rewards are not rewarding anymore. So it's only then they would address it as bad habits. Again, to change the habits, we have to see what it is that we are, which modes it is that we are associating with. Anyway, and so knowing that, so how do we form good habits? Now we need to first learn to be aware of these gunas. We have to learn to be aware of the modes. The modes is gunas, and we know that it is, there's three of them: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And we also know that this is Krishna's divine energy. Devi hi esha gunamai mama maya duratyaya. This divine energy of mine is very difficult to overcome. So we got to know this is his powerful. She's very powerful, and as soon as okay, it's just as we have like as soon as we decide on a certain mode that we are acting on, these energies will then act on us as soon as we make those decisions which modes to act with. So, and it's never purely goodness or purely passion or purely ignorance. Just like we have trichromatic vision, we from the three primary colors, and we see this different colors, the mixes of different colors. There's no object out there made out of one pure color. Similarly, all our actions, all our everything, the modes permeates everything. It's in everything, the objects, the even buildings. Sometimes when we are going to buy a house, we are already in our mind, we have what it is that we want, and depending on the modes again. So if I want a house that is got a nice temple room, I have a place for a nice temple room, I'll have um, a, 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 a good kitchen to cook, these other things, good kitchen. So the thoughts are about, how do I want a house that I can live in the mode of goodness? Then I will be attracting, or I would be drawn to houses that will exhibit those modes as well. And if I have my motivation of looking for a house is so that they are, you know that it attracts, my friends and family and relatives will be very envious of me having this kind of house, then I will look for a very fancy kitchen or a very fancy, I don't know, marble top, so whatever it is. So we are drawing certain things. So once we make those decisions in our mind, which modes we want to act, and then nature has a way to bring you to those things that you are drawn to. And this same thing works with people. Sometimes we are drawn to certain kinds of people because we have we are acting under certain modes. And so when we have that same modes that we see in another person, we are drawn to them. So it's because it's compatible. Oh, okay. So I can, you can understand. So it acts on, and Krishna gives this information, how the modes is acting on everything in the Bhagavad Gita, from karma, from the kind of austerities, the kind of charity that we do, the kind of food we take, the kind of shraddha, the faith that we have, how the modes is acting on all of these aspects of our lives, so that we can make a choice when we are trying to act, that we pick the right modes and how the appearance of this will be under these different kinds of modes. And so that we can, when we choose our friends and places, music, in different kinds of modes, they once we pick them, then they act on us. So once we pick which modes we want to act, they act on us. That's a nice verse in 13:22, where Krishna says, the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. So this is something Krishna has set up. And once we make a decision which modes to act on, the modes then again acts on us, because our choices of having to associate with those modes. And it's amazing, because once we decide on a certain modes, they shape our behavior. They shape the degree of morality of our behavior, whether it's a good behavior, bad behavior. They shape all that. And also our outlook. So it's almost like you pick this, and then the action is going to take place. Ultimately, we got to know that these modes are binding us, whether even if we choose to work in the mode of goodness, it is binding us. It's a guna, it's a rope. And as devotees, we are not, as those who are interested in spiritual life, we are not interested in just trying to act in the mode of goodness, although we know mode of goodness facilitates spiritual practices better. But understanding that ultimately these gunas are ropes, we want to transcend it also. And this is by associating with spiritual energy, with spiritual association, with spiritual sound, Shravanam, Kirtanam. And why do we do this? Because what the modes are acting on is our mind and our senses. These are matter. So as long as we are choosing these things, we are going to be working according to the modes. But if you want to transcend it, then we have to have a calling that comes from the soul. And calling for Krishna can only come from the soul level. Your body matter cannot call for Krishna. Anyway, so if we have any, I think we've heard this param drishva nivartate very often. If you want to replace a habit that we don't like or behavior that we don't like, then we replace it with something higher so that we can lose the lower taste. So the higher taste, the higher something, higher behavior is, we can cultivate it by choosing to associate with a higher mode. If you're in ignorance, you choose to associate something in passion and then up to goodness. And we can also have a checklist. Krishna has given, I only given some here, but there's a checklist of all of pravriti and nivritti. What are the things to do and what are the things not to do? And these are the checklists that those who are serious about their spiritual life would try to follow as much as possible. Prabhupada says in a lecture here about this, I will read a small part of what he said. It's always very nice to hear from Prabhupada, because you not only get to hear what it is he's saying about this, but it is also the mood in which that he speaks, and it's very nice. So what is nivritti? Nivritti means what we're not supposed to do. So Krishna is trying to say that we have to do, we are not supposed to do a lot of things because that would facilitate our spiritual progress. So this is what Prabhupada says in 1975. Nivritti Marga means no more material enjoyment. Let me make progress towards Krishna consciousness. Therefore, devotional service or bhakti yoga is called Nivritti Marga. And elsewhere in another class, he says, this Krishna consciousness movement is the training of the basic principles of Nivritti Marga. So many no's. No means Nivritti. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, and no intoxication. So this is the no path. When we say so many no's, they think that is brainwashing. But if you want to develop your spiritual life, then you have to stop so many nuisances. That is Nivritti Marga. And the Asuras do not know this. But so it's very nice. So Prabhupada is saying that we have to know what is to do and what not to do. And in the Nectar of Devotion, there's even a longer list of all the nivrittis. And in Upadeshamrita, we also know, Vachavegam, Krodegam, Vachavegam, Manasakrodavegam, Jivavegam, Udarapashtavegam. So there's a lot of no's. We got to watch our speech. We got to watch, starting from our speech and what we eat, genitals, belly, and anger. So we have many checklists, so we have to watch and really know what it is our mind is drawn to. Is this appropriate for us? Is this going to help me develop good behavior? And if it's not, then how do I change my thinking so that a good behavior develops? And we do this with children as well, like in the beginning, when we want to cultivate good behavior with children, we always say, oh, okay, if you brushed your teeth every day, or if you did your laundry every day, and every day you're collecting stars, and by the end of the week we will give you a reward of some sort. So they are motivated, and then they keep doing this. But that is suited for children who are, you're training them to be very much already in the mode of passion, that you're doing it because of a reward in return. But if you train them to say that you should brush your teeth every day, you give them the jnanam, you brush your teeth every day, and you tell them, because this teeth is the only set you're going to have for the rest of your life, so it is really serves your own purpose to brush your teeth. Then with that knowledge and the mode of goodness, they're going to see, if I brush my teeth, this is going to be good for me, and I'm going to be happy doing that, whether or not I get any reward out of this. So it is very much in knowing how to, we do that with children. So It is something we just need to know how to practice on ourselves. And then finally, another thing that we should be aware, or we can help us to observe our choice of behaviors is this something that Vishnu is going to be pleased? You know, if Vishnu is going to be pleased, then we should do it as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Yagyartat yagyartat karma no nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha tarartam karma kanteya mukta sangha samachara. So if you do this work for Vishnu, then it will not bind you. But if you do it for your own satisfaction, obviously it will. So it is do, and then you will be not bound, and if you don't, you will be bound. So, and Krishna says the same thing to Arjuna in 1817, you know, as long as you do your duty, this is assuring him that if he did his duties as a Kshatriya without ahankara, without false ego, and you're doing it as a service for me, even if it's as abominable as killing another living entity, you're not going to be bound by it because you did it for my satisfaction. So we can also checklist, are these behaviors pleasing to Krishna? If it's not, then we know we are going to have a repercussion for that. And sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti is the only thing that is going to take us above the modes. You know, we don't want to hover around in the mode of goodness and being happy. In, you know, there's a certain level of happiness that is nice to sustain. You know, eat the right food and all of that is very good. But sadhana bhakti is what we need to lift ourselves out completely from the modes, and nothing but Shravanam, Kirtanam, chanting Hare Krishna, and association. Association is extremely important, you know, when we want to practice sadhana bhakti. But in general as well, association is, even if you know, I don't know who exactly you know, our audience are, but even if they are not interested in bhakti yoga, but just the very fact of choosing your right association, whether it is what you're watching or what you're eating, and all of that makes a huge difference in your quality of life, in your quality of happiness. The reason I'm bringing this up is just an example of how, say, you know, like I'm sure you would have heard of this very famous and or infamous criminal, Ted Bundy, who was a serial killer. And they were very fascinated on what motivated him to do such a horrible act. You know, they were trying to pinpoint, is it hereditary, or did you have a terrible childhood? Did something happen? Is it a traumatic event that kind of caused you to vent this anger out and make you go and kill all these women? Or what happened? You know, they spent years trying to get it out of him, and this is while he was in prison. And he said, no, I had a wonderful childhood, and my parents were very affectionate. I had a great time as a childhood. It was my exposure to pornography. Now he's saying pornography didn't suddenly make him want to go out and kill people. That's not how it worked. It was more of um, the attraction to cause violence. And he said, I have been living here. I've been living in the prison for a very long time. And he said, without exception, every single one of them are very deeply engrossed in pornography and are addicted to it. And so it is interesting because it is not so much of a simple exposure like this. It is what that exposure makes you do. I mean, like, you're engaging in the mode of passion stroke ignorance, and you're just going down and down. The different modes are acting on you in a lower way gradually, and then your behavior is manifest because you chose to um, like something like that. And and an example, so that is what association is extremely crucial. What we choose to watch or what we choose to eat, it seems very harmless, but this is what happens. It changes your consciousness. It changes your consciousness to choose. The modes are acting you to tie you down here. So the consciousness would change to choose something less palatable, less conducive to your to your well-being, really. So the only way you can pick yourself up from stuff like that is either you have a very strong, dirty determination in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. Krishna talks about this again. A very, good determination to make sure that you do the right thing, or you just pray to Krishna really hard, practice bhakti really strongly, and that has a very strong effect. I mean, we know the example of Murgari the hunter. Murgari the hunter, he had a serious addiction to, to seeing animals half dead when he was killing. He didn't, for him it was some kind of a very sick sense enjoyment to leave them half alive when he was killing them. But then when he had the great fortune of seeing Narada Muni, and he wanted to change, and it was nice that he wanted to change, and when he made that change, his whole, he moved from ignorance to greater, to greater than goodness. It is how the power of doing bhakti, because bhakti is transcendental. It is not act, the mode doesn't act on it. So this is the way we can really lift ourselves up. The other example would be of Valmiki. Valmiki was living a life where he was also killing, and he was also killing for a living. And the sages came to tell him, they try to explain to him that you shouldn't kill for a living, and there's a lot of, bad karma involved in everything. And if you really want to understand it, why don't you go and tell your wife and your sons that you will carry on this work, but you take on the karma of having of me having to kill the animals. And they didn't want to do that. And so he came back disappointed, and he said, okay, that's it, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And he started chanting Mara 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 is the mantra that the sages gave him. And they didn't want him to commit any offense towards the name, so they gave him Mara instead of Rama. And they came back after 10,000 years, and he liberated himself. So it is, if you really want a change of behavior, there has to be a serious change of heart, and that really acts in our mind of having to decide which modes we want to act. And for a deeper and a more permanent change, it's only through associating with spiritual sound, spiritual books, by Prabhupada, reading, associating with devotees who understand this. And that's the only way we can get out of it, and to change behavior. I think that is everything. And I might have been, that's my, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take it. But if there isn't, I'm also happy with that. I hope that was
Thank
okay.
you. Yes, Mataji, that was a very nicely presented class. Like, there were so many. Your visual aspect was really very helpful in following the content. And first, I would like to open it to the other attendees for any questions, and I will ask my question later.
Sure.
And so, anybody would like to ask a question to Mataji, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask.
Yes, thank you so much, Mataji. It was an excellent class. This is on Krishna Das. I just got initiated yesterday, so
Yes,
it
I
is.
heard and I saw. It was wonderful.
Thank you very much. This is a very helpful class. I guess you're giving us the tools for us, the association, and making that choice that we are not a slave to our habits if we have the determination to overcome them. However, it is very difficult if we just let life just takes its course without just thinking how we can be spiritual today. I guess that H.D. Goswami, Acharya Dev, one of the things that he said to us yesterday was, when I get up, how can, what is the soul gonna do today, as opposed to what is the body gonna do today? So I think that that ties very nicely in terms of the habit. So thank you so much for your wisdom and for your guidance.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. I'm only repeating what Prabhupada said, but it is true that that we do have a power to change our habits. Like quite, the kind of recommendations that whichever studies they have find and they publish it, the recommendations are not very, they're not conclusive. They are just like, try this. If it doesn't work, then try that. If this doesn't work, then try this. They're not based on anything concrete. It is more of trial and error. So yeah, so they feel like if you don't like the outcome, then just change your habit, and you just have to just force yourself and do it. But Krishna is giving a very different idea on how to change your behavior. It's really up to he's given us the tools, and he's given us how to see this, and it is very much our choice which modes, and then this accordingly the behavior will come about. And it is, I've personally found that quite a revelation. I've read it before, but it just hit home for me. Well, anyway, thank you. Hare Krishna Varna.
Pavani, Hare Krishna.
Nice to see you.
So thank you so much for a wonderful class. I love it. And I think it's a wonderful subject.
Thank
So
you.
we all need psychology.
We all
To
need
improve.
some kind of, yes, guidance in our, to know how it is that we are working, our mind is working. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And
Thank
so
you.
we miss you.
Yes. And I miss being there this time of the year, especially. It's
Yeah.
such a nice
We'll
weather.
see. We'll see.
Yes. Nice to see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Pavani Mataji.
Yes.
So wonderful coming in often, giving class often on our sessions here. So the question that I have is that, we as people trying to improve our habits, we are aware that there is issues that we need to work on. But sometimes, and there's a question basically, when we think too much about our faults and our shortfalls and drawbacks, that we are behind in this, we're not good in this, we should be doing better, look at other devotees that are doing nice, will that somehow, bring a negative impact on us to think that I'm not a better person? No, forget about the devotee part, that I'm not a good person, everything I do always gets wrong or I make mistakes. So somehow there could be a negative impact to think always about that I need to improve, or what could be the positive thing to put in ourselves that I can have a chance like that, That's a question. That's my question to you.
Thank you, Prabhu. And nice to see you too, Joy Priyana Prabhu. I think when you try to Hridayananda Goswami gave a nice statement about this. When we think too good about ourselves, that is not very conducive. That's not quite going to motivate us to do something. And at the same time, when you think too lowly about yourself, that you are useless and compared to somebody else are not doing very much, that is also not very good. That is not also a good motivation to do your behavior or your sadhana practice properly. We need to find somewhere in the balance. That is, I remember him saying that. But saying that according, to compare ourselves with somebody, I mean, can be a healthy competition for service. That's quite separate. You're happy to see somebody doing such nice service, and you want to be able to be like that or do like that. That is different. But to berate ourselves and say we are not good enough, and we're not good enough as somebody else, again, it is a little bit of a mentality in the mode of passion, because you are trying to do it because you want to be better than somebody. That becomes your motive, and that shouldn't be. I mean, you could, but then the outcome is, again, the behavior, the action that follows is not going to be quite conducive, or it's not going to be quite pleasing to Krishna. We do something because it is the right thing to do, and that is what pleases Krishna. Instead of putting ourselves down, it doesn't quite help us that way. That's my understanding, Prabhu. I hope that
Thank
helps.
you. Yeah, no, that definitely helps. Thank you, Mats. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? So, okay, Brahmaji Prabhu. Yes. Brahmaji Prabhu, did you have a question? No.
No, Prabhu, it was an accident. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought, yeah. So, Mataji, I like that in the last slide where you are, your first point was being aware of the modes. So, being aware of the modes, so there is jnana buddhi, combination of jnana buddhi as one of the constituents that lead to a habit. And being aware can only happen if we have the knowledge, right? If someone tells us that, oh, there is something like the three modes of material nature, so that's important. So in my daily, particularly like in the last 1 year, I've been struggling to strike that balance. So I've been pushing myself to be relevant and to be um, contributing at work. But sometimes I begin to feel like am I just being that person in that mode of passion, who is trying to do things just because I am interested in interested in advancing career or goals. And so I kind of get I struggle with that, and I struggle to keep up with my sadhana bhakti practices. I'm able to do it, but it's like that, getting that balance that, oh, it's 11 o'clock at night and I have not read a single line from Prabhupada's books. I have to read it now. And then, okay, okay, but like this thing needs to be paid attention, like this thing needs attention, maybe 5 more minutes. And then I'm pushing, like it's 11:15 now. And I have to spend at least 45 minutes reading Prabhupada's books, because like that's something that I set for myself. So at that point, I begin to think that, what should I be doing? If I okay, I can try to maybe make like schedule my day in a better way, but I feel it's always hard to do that. So in your experience, how does one deal with that feeling that, okay, am I pushing myself too much to to achieve something that's you know uh, in one of those modes, like in the mode of passion? Or could I just like cut down on that and focus more on my sadhana bhakti aspect, which will help me come above the modes of material nature? So do you have any comments on that? Like, how do we stabilize ourselves? Because Kali Yuga is difficult, right? Kali
Yes.
Yuga,
Yes.
just to stand in the place where you need to like sprint forward. So
Yes.
it's like that. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that. If my question made sense, I said
No, it
many
made
things I
sense,
know.
Prabhu. Thank you for asking that question, and it is very relevant. We are all trying to juggle our duties, material duties, and our spiritual duties as well. And a few things, and I hope I remember all these things. I was asking the same question about this, and my inquiry was, I think we can learn from Srila Prabhupada's example. When he was a grahasta and he was running his pharmacy business, he was very motivated. He wanted to do well. He wanted to be a successful business. And how are we supposed to understand that? He's a pure devotee, no doubt. how are we supposed to understand that he was desiring to do well in his business? Um, the thing is, he was wanting to be successful as a service to his guru. He wanted to offer this service to his guru so that whatever that he gets from it, he can publish the magazines. And his mind was always focused on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's what he called his instructions. But in the case of having to do his duties, he was also still doing it with oomph. He didn't hold back. He was doing it well so that he would please his guru. Now the difference here is that he's trying to please his guru, and I think we can ask: are we working very hard to please ourselves or to please Krishna? So that is the slight difference in motivation. There's no harm in working very hard. If Prabhupada says if you're doing something, then do it really well, but do it for Krishna. So I think it's not wrong with that. And then in you saying that, am I giving it too much time to work? And Krishna also says that, it doesn't matter how well you do all these other duties, if they do not bring you to Krishna, then it is of no value. So it is something we have to do while we are in this body. We have duties according to our varna and ashram, but they shouldn't be overriding the duties that we have as jivas. So when you say that I don't have enough time to read or something like this, I somebody gave me this example as well. If you have a bowl and you have big stones and small stones, and you have to fit all of this into this big bowl, how will you do it? And some people will say, well, first you put all the small stones, let it take the space, and then you try and squeeze in the big stones. But the final solution is put the big stones in first, and then you put all the small stones in after that. So we have to make sure that we give this the priority, because ultimately our goal is not to be successful anything. We want to get out of it. So sadhana bhakti should be the big stones. We want to put this in first. So find it in a way that we are fitting in this, and then in my own personal experience, I homeschool my kids, and we try to study Bhagavatam, some reading every day. And sometimes in the weekends, like today we have some friends over, and we didn't get to do it, and so we they are still playing outside. So how would I do this? Like I feel I missed an opportunity, then we just make up for it the next day. We read a bit more, and even though Sundays we don't, but we will do it because we missed today. So it's a little bit of balancing here and there, but it has to be done. It just has to be done. We just have to find our way to do it. But in terms of working hard, you shouldn't be working so hard till it takes your whole resources, your energy and strength to do sadhana bhakti when you come back from work. It should be enough that, okay, this is an offering to Krishna. I did my best here, but this is my real work. This is me and Krishna time, and that should be my priority. I hope does that help, Prabhu? Or
Yeah, it does help. It does help, that the balancing as well as making up. So commitment, I think that's what, like, it's
yeah,
a personal thing. So if you're having a relationship with the Lord, then just like any other relationship, to make it better, you need to have a commitment. That's
yeah,
what I think is the underlying thing. And
yeah,
the more we feel that we are committed to someone and not some impersonal
yeah,
entity,
yeah.
the better it is. And I think sadhana and prayer and dependence on the Lord and the devotees just help
Yes.
strengthen that. So yeah, I just made that connection. Thank you so much for
You're welcome. It helps like that, this synergy of just talking, and then it's like, oh yeah, this I got it myself. But yeah, it's
it's yeah, it's not something like I heard from you and today things will change. But it just it's like reinforcement. You hear, and then it
yes,
begins to slowly seep in, percolate
yeah,
inside. So
Yeah, I think that is
Yeah.
amazing about having to listen to classes. I know I like listening to other people's classes because it sometimes is the same information. I mean, everybody, the subject today, I have spoken about the three modes, it's coming from Bhagavad Gita. Everybody has read it, and everybody has known it, but it is just about, the example they give is like, Shakespeare, like the famous writings of Shakespeare. He has written a book, but ever since he's written his book, whether it's Romeo and Juliet or whatever, so many people have written the same rendition of Shakespeare's books. Like many people has written Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, but their understanding of it, their point of view of it. So many readers, everybody wants to read other people's version of how Shakespeare read or wrote his book, because you're going to have a different perspective on how they saw his book or how they read, which point that they bring up. So I find it in the same way. Thank you for this opportunity to able be talking about this. But I do know, like, there are many devotees, when they talk about the modes or behavior or habits, their perspective of it is, coming from the same place, but it's just very, it brings a different perspective, like you say, it brings it in deeper because you're seeing it from different angles, and it's so refreshing. I find it refreshing. So it's nice to, and
big thank you to you.
thank you so much, and it was really nice. Thank you.
So if no other devotees have questions, I know it's like also getting late for Nandaji and for all of us. So we can close. So one final call. Any other questions, follow-up questions for Mataji?
Prabhu,
I will
thank you
take
for your
over
wonderful
Brahmaji from.
question. Prabhu, thank you for your wonderful question, because it helped me realize some of the prioritization I'm giving in my life as well. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you were trying to ask something, and your thought got transmitted to my heart, and I just, the words came out.
No, the credit is yours, Prabhu, but it's a wonderful question.
Thank you so much
Okay.
again, and it's
Thank
very
you.
nice to talk to everybody. Nice associate,
Thank you,
and hope to see you all someday. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Dandavat.
Bye.
Pranam.